Communities in the Vaal affected by ongoing sewage that spills into their homes, onto the streets and into rivers say they've lost hope in the government to resolve the issue.
The Vaal situation, the environmental situation is catastrophic and should be characterized as a disaster and also as a crime against humanity.
I would say it is an environmental crime because in terms of the Constitution, we have the right to clean water and we also have the right to an environment that isn't harmful to our health.
In townships, a sense of dystopia has set in, with the most vulnerable in society at risk of contracting diseases, with high levels of contamination detected in the water.
Kunenkinga enkulu ngoba vese abantwana njengoba behlala nabo kanjena bayagula waseklinikhi uthola lo sizo oluncane ngoba kuyefana noma ungaya emtholampilo baza kusiza ngaleso sikhathi usaphinda futhi usabuyela kuyona yona lento le engekho right.
Millions of litres of untreated raw sewage flow into the Vaal River from the municipality's sewage plant daily, affecting communities, plant and animal life further downstream.
If we don't keep the pressure on the local municipality and government, they'll just sit back and nothing will get done about it.
The Army's deployment last year was unable to deal with the sewage spills, lack of funds and skilled manpower, as well as alleged corruption in the municipality, has created a humanitarian disaster, with some homeowners resorting to extreme measures to deal with the sewage. There was renewed hope in November last year when the Army was deployed in the Vaal to deal with the ongoing sewage crisis. The SABC treatment plant is one of the areas of most concern, spilling millions of litres of raw sewage daily into the Rietspruit, a tributary of the Vaal River.
Is flowing into the Vaal River, unfortunately, because this plant here at SABC, its capacity, we are looking at 100 mega. But currently now it's only operating at about 20% because there's no distribution of sewer from various pump stations. This plant here, it's serviced by 4 pump stations. So none of those 4 pump stations, they are bringing water here because of the blockages or along the infrastructure itself. That's why there's a problem.
The Army cleaned up the sewage plant and blocked drains and fixed some pump stations. But experts say they were overwhelmed by the complexity and the magnitude of the job at hand. The Army says its unbudgeted funds ran out. It is currently guarding the infrastructure whilst preparing to gradually hand over to the Department of Environmental Affairs.
There was so much hope. Everybody was so excited when the SANDF arrived, and really, you cannot blame the SANDF. They were sent here without really knowing what they were supposed to do. And what they did do was clear out some of the huge wastewater treatment tanks. But there's more technical work that needs to be done before they can work again. And unfortunately, the SANDF doesn't really have the technical knowledge to do that. And of course, there's no budget. We have been promised budget since Mr. Mboweni said that he would send the Army down here.
The SABC hostel is one of the areas worst affected by the sewage. 86-year-old Shoshana Wawana says he spends his days unblocking drains, trying to get the wastewater to flow to the sewage plant, but the pipes are blocked.
5 years, ifasa lesho lisapho. Ayivuke kamandla kahamba kumele ngafakade izindle. Kusukela koneni imanolo zithunga afa zize zifasa uzoma afa kusukela lapho uyakuma kula manolo ofisi usebenza kundawo ezine toilet funa kufake lento usebenza uqeda wawugcina ishumi.
The hostel is home to unemployed youth, women and children. Here, service delivery to the community is practically non-existent. Piles of rubbish litter the township's dusty streets. The human calamity is aggravated by raw sewage spilling into people's homes.
Isonti af iyakaka iyafasa amandla abuyele ezindlini. Ama-5 ngala kudala. Ngoko kwami ngicela uba makasuswe la kudala kufakwa amatsha. Azohamba kakusabokwela.
A research study which was recently conducted by the University of the Northwest found that the deplorable living conditions in Sebokeng have had far-reaching consequences for people's physical and mental well-being.
In the research group, we have at several places a sense of dystopia that prevails in society, where it seems as if people have lost their self-respect and their dignity and their identity, their sense of community, as a result of the wastewater pollution. The most interesting thing is we are still living in an apartheid-like system, in the sense that Sebokeng and Sharpeville and many of the other townships appear to be far removed from the former white parts of Mfuleni, like Van der Bijl Park and Vereniging.
Professor Tempelhoff says the effects of this sewage have severe consequences for young children growing up in these inhumane conditions. 35-year-old Bongiwe Mzizi has 4 young children, including a baby, which he says is now beginning to crawl.
Thola ukhathazeko okukhulu ngoba ngifuna umntwana enze washingi nandi nalento la ilana phandle umntwana ngalana awukhona ukuthi ungambeka phansi umntwana ngoba lana kunjena ngeke azakhona ukuthi akwazi ukuthi akhase enze kahle ngoba kunale storage lena ayikho right. Ngiphila kabuhlungu kakhulu ngoba thina hleli sisiva i-hour ne-hour usuku nosuku, long time. Phila kabuhlungu kakhulu thina ngoba thina into esihleli sesiphila ngayo, isimelo sakhona nje sixakile ngayona ndlela.
She says her baby has problems breathing and has to be medicated at short intervals. Bongiwe says she's concerned because her baby isn't getting better.
Kunenkinga enkulu ngoba vese abantwana njengoba behlala nabo kanjena bayagula, baseklinikhi uthola lo sizo oluncane ngoba kuyefana noma ungaya emtholampilo bazakusiza ngaleso sikhathi usaphinda futhi usabuyela kuyona yona lento le engekho right.
For us filming here, the stench of streams of human waste surrounding Bongiwe's home is overwhelming, unbearable. It stayed with us long after we left. Bongiwe says it's had an impact on her dignity and self-worth. She says what saddens her most is that the government isn't doing anything about it.
Siya complain ukhambe phona uthi chaza ukuthi ke indlela ehlala yona ikanje nabo bayayibona nabantu abasebenzayo la kuthiwe bayeza kusasa kodwa akaze wenzeke lokho. Siphinde futhi sihlale emntweni ekanje. Bahlezi bethembisa abadlulelana bezemsebenzini abantu abasebenza khona kuthiwe sizathola usizo kodwa sikaze silithola usizo. Kwesinye isikhathi besize siqashe umuntu oyena isebenze lento sikhipha imali yona leyo singenayo sizama ukuthi sikhiphe imali lo muntu esimqashayo osebenzela nje asilungisele aphinde futhi iphinde ibe kanje.
In September last year, the South African Human Rights Commission held an inquiry into the sewage spills in the Vaal to establish if there were violations of people's human rights.
During the inquiry, we heard that there were 8 contempt of court orders against the municipality. And this points to the fact that we are sitting with a disaster.
But it appears there's not much that the municipality can do. Their coffers are empty. More than 870 million rand meant to go towards service delivery in Mfuleni has not been accounted for, allegedly looted. But the mayor prefers to call it irregular expenditure.
It impacted negatively on our service delivery because firstly it affects the morale of the people. It is actually not ethical for the administration to lose such money. But what actually should be recorded is that money was not stolen by people. It was used at wrong places, instead actually using it for the area where it was earmarked for. But it is true that it affected the rollout plan of service delivery.
It is maladministration, it is corruption. 873 million. We're not talking here about a small figure. Can you imagine if that money could be linked to a particular project?
Reverend Gift Moerane was appointed as the mayor of Umfuleni in January this year. Prior to that, he sat on a panel advising previous mayors of the troubled municipality. Environmental lobby group Save the Vaal has for more than a decade been actively involved in holding the municipality accountable for the sewage spills, including raising awareness on the dangers it poses to communities and the environment. We travelled with them up the Rietspruit River to get an account of the contamination.
The sewage that's coming in here is untreated from the treatment plants. In the region of about 130 megalitres per day coming down into the Rietspruit, which then flows into the Loch Vaal and then into the Vaal River and down to Parys.
Is this one of the areas of most concern when it comes to pollution in the water?
This is the highest concern of the pollution coming into the Vaal River, and also then the Klip Rivier, which comes in the other side of Vereeniging.
According to reports, more than 19 million people are affected by the Vaal's polluted waters. It's the main source of water for communities, businesses, religious practices and fishing. 54-year-old Paul van der Berg says, over the years, the fish have become scarce.
It's very polluted because that side there's plenty sewage water going in the river and nobody's doing nothing about it. So and it affect my fishing plenty.
Save the Vaal has obtained 7 court orders against the Umfuleni municipality, but they have failed to comply. Here you can clearly see how the untreated raw sewage flows from the Sebokeng plant further upstream into the river. The pollution levels are extremely high.
The white foam is basically the breakdown of the raw sewage work coming in, which has been turned over and rolled over through the works. Then it becomes, as you've seen on the water, the black clots that are running down the water. That actually then breaks down into the salt that is now laying in the top of the Rietspruit.
What does pollution do to the fish?
Well, it's obviously the fish obviously will start dying from the lack of oxygen in the water. The bird life, the environment is also obviously deteriorating from the raw sewage sitting in the water.
The black sludge contains methane, E. coli and other dangerous pathogens.
This is the breakdown of the raw sewage that's come into the Rietspruit, into the Loch Vaal, and has formed a silt base on the bottom of the riverbed, which is highly toxic.
A report issued by Rand Water in August shows that the E. coli levels at this point are almost 500,000 counts per 100 millilitres of water. This is 1,000 times more than the recommended 400 counts of E. coli, which is extremely high.
How did you allow this whole infrastructure to collapse? This has collapsed.
I agree, it has collapsed, and I remember it didn't collapse last year. It was actually systematic, almost 10-year period of this system. We acknowledge that, and we cannot just complain that because we were not assisted. There was a failure on the side of the municipality.
Over the years, a number of government ministers have been dispatched to the Vaal to deal with the sewage problems. They've promised jobs, including the necessary funds to fix the problem. Last month, it was the turn of Deputy President David Mabuza, who arrived with his entourage.
National government intervened because this village was now unbearable. Then we send the soldiers. The Minister of Water and Sanitation followed. The Minister of Kokta followed. I'm following. I'm aware that Mfuleni is under Section 139. That means the provincial government has taken powers, the executive powers of the mayor and the municipal manager. So the province is now responsible. They are fixing what is wrong there.
A number of angry community members protested outside the sewage plant, demanding Mabuza tell them where the jobs that government promised them are.
And then have a research in module 7. So because we got module 7, so to us it seems like a word failure without any kind of action.
The community are angry. Even the module 7 that they were supposed to start at July is not yet started. Even it's almost 2 months later now. We are hoping that the deputy president as he is here, we can push that when 2 weeks is coming back, everything is fine.
Mabuza promised to report back to the community on the jobs issue in a few days' time.
Banthembisa umsebenzi. Isithembiso sabo. Bathi sisesenjalo lesithembiso.
At a public meeting in 2015, the former Minister of Water and Sanitation, Nomvula Mokonyane, told the community that a planned expansion project of the plant would deal with the sewage problems and create thousands of jobs for the community.
Mario Milani Drive is one of the main roads leading into Vereniging and then on to Peacehaven. There's a serious problem with waste in this area. Waste is being dumped on both sides of the road. This waste gets into the stormwater drains as well as the rivers, clogging up the system.
Illegal dumping, potholes and crumbling infrastructure dominate the landscape in Mfuleni as we drove along the edge of the Vaal River.
It's one thing to have potholes in the streets, but it's another thing to have the deterioration of your wastewater treatment systems that potentially hold a threat to the environmental health of communities.
In Peacehaven, Vereniging, we meet Darren Milani, the manager of a guest house. Darren says his daily routine consists of unblocking sewage lines on the property. The stench of human feces is unbearable.
Well, people are living in their own feces. It's overflowing in the streets. It's costing me thousands a month to get honeysuckers in to sort this out. I spend every single day at least doing this 2 or 3 times a day. You know, it's not pleasant. You know, especially when you have to worry about what's lurking at the bottom.
He says in the past week, he has only had one inquiry for accommodation. People that had booked in previously ended up moving out within a few minutes of staying on the property.
When I started here, we were getting, on an average, about out of all of our rooms, we were roughly getting about 70% full. Within the last 4 months, 5 months, we're lucky if we get a phone call every 3 or 4 days and a booking. For an example, this week that's passed now, we had 1 booking and 1 booking that didn't even come in. For our business, we can't pay staff. We have to literally end up putting our staff on short time.
Masabata Maleti says she's fed up with the municipalities in action. She says she recently brought in the plumbers to connect a sewage pipe to her toilet. The waste now flows into the street. Masabata says she's often thought of selling her house, but who would want to live here?
I'm thinking of selling this house, but then because of the situation, we thought about it with my husband that there's nobody who would want to come and live in this condition that we are trying to run away from.
This is the general picture we get when driving around Peacehaven in the Vaal. Part of the problem is the aging infrastructure that has not been maintained for several years.
This is one of more than 40 pump stations in the Mfuleni municipality. According to the mayor's office, more than 30 of these pump stations have been broken or vandalized. The pump stations are meant to suck up the sewage from communities to the waste treatment plants.
At the edge of Gulf Road in Peacehaven, a broken down pump station has resulted in an overflow of sewage which poses serious health risks to the community. The mayor says the national government has now released 150 million rand that will go towards unblocking the system.
ERVAT has been officially appointed. Their task now is to unlock the network so that sewer can flow into the network, actually the dams where it's supposed to end. Because at the moment we are receiving less than 30% of water that's supposed to go into the wastewater treatment center.
The South African Human Rights Commission says the dire situation in the Vaal is just a snapshot of a bigger problem affecting municipalities countrywide.
Mfuleni is a microcosm of what is happening across the country. Recently, the Department of Water and Sanitation lamented the state of our wastewater treatment works or plants across the country. In Gauteng, as we speak, we are busy at the moment with an investigation into the state of water and wastewater treatment plants in the city of Tshwane.
Professor Tempelhoff says a recent government study found that Mfuleni doesn't have the capacity or the necessary skilled personnel to deal with the sewage problems.
The Department of Water and Sanitation in 2018 issued a report in which they provided a graph of the weaknesses of the Water Services Authority, Metsi Alekua, of Mfuleni local municipality, in which they said there is a lack of knowledge and technological insight. There is also a lack of sufficient personnel to man or operate a very complex water purification system that contains 3 wastewater treatment systems, as well as approximately 2,800 kilometers of sewage pipelines passing through the whole Mfuleni local municipality.
It's hoped that a recent 1.1 billion rand pledge will deal with the sewage spills in the Vaal and bring some relief to affected communities. But before the system starts working, vulnerable people like Bongiwe Mzizi and others continue to bear the brunt of an inept municipality, while the Vaal River's fragile ecosystem could take years to recover from the pollution.